Hey, Chris Baker here with a bit of a different kind of video for you today. Due to popular demand, one guy, hi Rams HBK, I am going to talk about Avengers Endgame. Just watch the text on the screen, you'll get the gist of it. Let's just roll it right now.
Biggity bonus time. Not Infinity War, Endgame. I can't get used to saying Endgame just yet. Because I feel like Endgame, I didn't even feel like Endgame was really upon us until I went and saw it, and there's a reason for that. Hi, I'm Chris Antista. I wanted to get some thoughts out. There will definitely be spoilers coming, and I got one of the greatest people ever to participate in a thought barrage on Endgame. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Baker.
Wow, that's quite the intro. Greatest people ever,
dude. But I have so many questions about the Marvel Universe. I've been texting with Brett. He asked me to relay some of his thoughts, but I just wanted to get it out immediately because one, I didn't feel Endgame was coming. Again, we'll keep the spoilers light for the beginning, but you really shouldn't listen to this unless you've seen it. The promotional materials don't tell you a fucking thing about this movie.
I love it.
It's crazy. I've never seen a movie hold so many cards back in its promotional materials, and I wasn't truly excited about the movie because they weren't really showing us what the movie was. And if you've seen any of the trailers, like I don't watch trailers, I don't want anything spoiled. Like apparently the Russo brothers knew that and presented to you a trailer that doesn't get you beyond the first 10 minutes of a 3-hour film. Like maybe there's the pictures of people in suits, but you knew that was going to happen. Holy shit! Like they are holding so many cards. I think there are over 100 surprises in this thing that you will not see coming.
Yeah, every few minutes, and you know the plot goes places that, you know, even if you know the comics, there might be like things where you think something's going to happen because you know the comics, and then it doesn't.
Yeah.
And you know, just there are things that do happen in the comics in it.
I know, man. That's what I can't wait to talk to you about. They're like. It's almost weirder when they like play something off very authentically and then just kind of like, yeah, but not all of it.
Right. And it kind of like runs the gamut in terms of things it does cover from comics. You know, it's not just Infinity stuff; it's other big events they've had as well. And I think I might have caught some other kind of smaller moments and details in there too. And above all else, though, it's just a good movie that is. You know, kind of the perfect way to cap this whole 11-year journey we've all been on.
Right, and I can't accurately explain it. And you know, it's hitting the zeitgeist, and people are talking about it because I think it got some of the highest Rotten Tomatoes scores of like any Marvel movie, which is strange because even my dad is now curious. I think he's seen like Guardians and Winter Soldier because I showed it to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I really should have gotten in on this. Where do I start?" And like, dude, don't bother. Don't bother.
Yeah, I mean, my parents have seen almost all of them, if not all of them. But you know, they don't remember all the, you know, who certain characters are that appeared 5 years ago in Guardians or whatever. You know, they enjoy the movies as they come, and I think they're probably going to enjoy this one whenever they see it. But you're not going to get as much out of it as like people who have seen every movie, you know, 200 to 200 times.
Yeah, it's an understatement to say that the Marvel movies have like kind of changed the way we expect movies to be watched. And I was just picked up in the store today like I think Harry Potter had a lot to do with that because Harry Potter making 8 movies with an interconnected story was kind of a huge risk if you think of the film world 15 years ago. Yeah, nobody wanted to make a movie where you needed to have knowledge of anything beforehand. And even the Marvel movies kind of gave you a primer. I tried to stick my dad with, I don't know, watch Civil War. That might help prepare you for Infinity War. And they do. There's little words and phrases they use in the beginning that are meant to catch people up who have no idea what's going on. But they eventually just had to stop doing that. And I think we can both say we really enjoyed our viewing, right?
Oh yeah, I have my 3 viewings now.
3 viewings. I'm headed for a second.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. I was originally I got, you know, when the tickets went on sale, I could only get Saturday because I guess I just got in too late. And then I have an Alamo Movie Pass, which is basically the pass thing for the Alamo Draft House. Season Pass, what's it called. And like a week before, it's like you can get your tickets like up to a week in advance. And just so happened, like on that day, they had more showings. So I asked my wife, hey, you mind if I go on Thursday night, like at 10:30, because that's all I can get right now.
Yeah.
And she was okay with it. And then the next day I was like, there's an 11:30 p.m. showing with 2 seats left in it, and I want to use one of those because I can do it for free, and I can't wait another day to see it.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the film. Like, I enjoyed it because it was, if you've watched every movie, and I mean pretty much every movie, even the Thors, which were to me the most disconnected from the universe up until Ragnarok. This is the most concentrated form of payoff I've ever seen in like mainstream entertainment. There's been no Marvel Comics crossover event that has rewarded you paying attention for 11 years to disparate storylines until this movie. I don't think it's 100% a closing of the book on the Marvel universe, but it does behave like that. Because
I think that's an amazing feat in and of itself, because you can just stop watching Marvel movies right now and be totally happy. But Spider-Man comes out in 3 months or whatever it is. So yeah, it also does leave the door open for something, although they got a lot to top whatever happens in the future.
Right. You're right. I don't. Where do you go from here? I mean, it's difficult to know because we've never really experienced anything like this before. The closest we have is Return of the Jedi, and even then, you only have like the death of Darth Vader. Like, Return of the Jedi is very much like it's another Star Wars movie. It doesn't present itself as a cap or an ending to the universe, even though it would be for a very long time. I can't think of anything else like this that's ever happened.
I mean, Lord of the Rings, I guess. Throw in there.
Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. I'm saying in light spoiler territory because it only reminded me the most of Harry Potter Part 7, Part 2. just because that movie is like a 1,000,000,000% payoff. It's like the first movie's like this brooding setup, and the second movie is all war explanation. Let's see where everybody goes, and I really did love that movie quite a bit. I won't tell you my biggest comparison yet because I'm still trying to stay away from spoilers. But I don't know how much of this movie did you see coming? As someone's been reading comics pretty significantly for 3 decades.
Did I see coming? Not much. I mean, I'm trying to avoid spoilers now at this point.
Oh, well, we will eventually spoil the shit of everything. I just want to give people like 10 minutes.
There's one particular thing that I was kind of dreading about it that I thought would be in it and was, but the way they handled it was like unlike anything I've seen in a movie before, and it totally redeemed its being there.
Huh. See, I thought I had a guess on what you were talking about, but your last 2 words lead me to believe I didn't. I was just mouth on the floor. And again, I made the decision after some jerk in the Laser Time community, I think, put a spoiler up. And I was going to wait and see it with, my friends and their kids when custody, all of that. And I'm just like, no, I'm going to go Friday morning by myself. And
I say my wife got a spoiler just by typing one single letter into a Google search.
Holy shit.
The stuff that came out.
Yeah, it's like
I'll tell you specifically what that was later on, but yeah,
totally.
She typed a specific letter, one letter, into Google search, and it had a true spoiler.
And I feel exceptionally bad for some people who I know that just talking to this many people, I know not everybody can see things opening week. There was even some person that's like, I'm hella interested. I can't see this till Blu-ray. He didn't explain why, but I've heard that many explanations. So you shouldn't be a dick about it, but I did want to present an environment where we could talk about some spoilers. And this is all coming from someone who thought the Marvel Universe didn't have anything left to truly excite or surprise me with. And again, you've been with me on a couple podcasts. I didn't get Hugh Jackman in a wife beater or Wesley Snipes in a pair of sunglasses. I didn't get the Netflix universe destroyed with a joke missile, which I thought would have been a good way to go.
Nice.
None of that happened, but everything else I never, ever, ever, ever could have predicted.
Yeah, there was a while there too where I was like, it'd be awesome is like all hope is lost, and then Doctor Strange opens a portal and in walks Hugh Jackman, but like if you think about it, like that totally devalues the last 11 years of non X-Men movies, right?
Yeah.
Like
It's true. I thought we had enough time to spend with maybe a new character for that universe, and I was actually sort of shocked, and I think that's one of the things Brett and I, not as a slam, but like if you're presenting this as a true Endgame, and I know there's a lot of things that needed to be represented in this movie, I was sort of shocked. It's not a criticism because I can't imagine you could do this with what time they had, but there is no new characters introduced, or in the ones who are new to this film aren't even really elevated. And to use like wrestling parlance, if you got a guy going out, you got to put the new guy over. And I didn't really see a ton of that but then I know at some point they had to make a decision. Like it's either about who's been with us on this journey or who's coming with us on the next quest, and they made their choice, and I think it was a good one. And
yeah, there's certainly enough characters to fill up a whole new movie like this.
A ridiculous amount of characters. And if you've seen Infinity War, they like Doctor Strange can't do that because they do operate on the principle that these characters are gone. They're not. Because I was unclear exactly what the dusting meant. Were they banished into some ethereal limbo realm? No, that's not the case. They're just dead. They're gone.
Right.
So you could not call on any of these characters to do anything in this film. And not even Wanda. When I was watching Civil War, I'm like, wow, that would have been nice. It would have been really nice to have her around. And I think I'll end spoilers. End no spoilers now. How about that? Everyone get the fuck out. I thought they were playing up Captain Marvel to play a much more significant role in this movie.
Okay. Yeah, I thought so too overall, and then she just kind of leaves at the beginning. But, at the same time, it kind of succeeded in making me forget about her, because when she actually shows up and, they start firing on something mysterious, it's like, I wonder what they actually are firing
That
on.
was so... And I don't want to diminish that moment at all. It's just that, like, when she finally comes back, it's like, was she solely introduced in a film to find Tony Stark floating in space? Because she was sort of the only character left who could do that. Because the Guardian ship is on Earth, and we don't have any other cosmic people. And I know that was one of Brett's criticisms. She's like, I really thought they were going to finally lean into like introducing the cosmic universe, but no, there isn't a ton of that.
Yeah, I don't think they needed to really do much introducing in this movie at all. It was all about ending things.
Yeah, I suppose.
So,
but then when Captain Marvel did come back, it's important. That's how few seconds this movie had. One, it plays up, this is now the most powerful character in the Marvel universe,
yes,
Captain Marvel.
Absolutely.
And then she sort of reveals the way out of. Look, we're in spoiler territory. Out of the Thanos and Infinity Stone quandary. Oh, you can just take them out. you can just swap them around. You can swap them around like Pogs, or for true Marvel fans, Disney Infinity figures. That's what the stones are. That's what the stones are. Where it gives our big moment to a big character. When that happened, I was the only one who screamed, "Oh fuck, that's not good," and the rest of the audience didn't get it. And I do want to say, dude, did the audience you see it with, like, this is. You need to make efforts to see these kind of movies on opening night. The audience was so ready to cheer.
Yeah, I think, because I saw it so late in both times, my audience was a little more subdued than I would have liked, or I know there were more revved up audiences around the country.
You're also watching with a bunch of cool New Yorkers.
Well, suburban New Yorkers.
And I was surprised because, like, it's in Tallahassee. It's a diverse theater, so Black Panther reemerges, huge applause, and I never get tired of. I'm like, wow, nothing's going to beat that. And then Spider-Man reemerges, and then the audience is on their feet. And I don't know, I forget sometimes because due to the whole stupid studio split, people like you and me think, is Spider-Man's value diminished during like all this separation? It turns out it isn't. Like, kids and adults were ecstatic to see the person we all knew was coming back because we've seen the trailer.
He gets like the biggest part of that frame too.
Yeah,
like, there's a bunch of people come out, and then like he gets the whole like right half of the screen to himself. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously people were they were anticipating a lot of people being happy to see Spidey jump in there.
Yeah, and again, I can't wait to see this again. I can't wait to poke holes in stuff in a fun way.
Yeah,
because like your first round should be unadulterated surprise and awe. But like I remember, I was just looking at my watch for the sake of this is going to be a big spoiler for the first half hour. And it's why I thought, like, I was like, oh shit, this is so funny. Captain Marvel's down there, and she has that great line you've seen in the promotional materials that, like, where were you during all this? And like, I have to patrol the rest of the universe, and they don't have a team like you.
Right.
Sweet and Kurt at the same time, and then they immediately warp to Thanos, and I was absolutely shocked. I really thought that would be the last we saw of Thanos.
Yeah, and then I had my own like fan theories, like maybe they're gonna go buy the comics and Thanos actually helps them out for a while, or like maybe Hela's gonna come back because so many people died and it empowered the goddess of death, or so. I had my own like fan theories, but I thought it was actually really cool that they made Thanos still manage to be the ultimate antagonist.
Right, and again, there's no, as far as I can tell, there's no basis for like, because the first half hour I just keep waiting to have my thoughts validated from the promotional materials, and within half an hour, Thor has decapitated.
Yes,
and that scene, there are so many great scenes after it. I just wanted to take a moment to dwell on it. When Captain Marvel bursts into that room, Hulkbuster armor comes up and grabs an arm. Like that, everybody attacks a weakened Thanos. Like, holy shit! That like right there, I'm like, I have no idea what's going to be in this movie. And
that was like a nice, just coordinated military attack. We're gonna send in our big gun. Going to take him out, going to weaken him, going to restrain him. Then we'll bring in other guys, and then the guy with the axe is just going to chop his hand off.
Yeah, because the Avengers proper had never come up against Thanos without at least one stone.
Right.
Because Hulk was the first. Hulk and Thor were the first to meet him, and even that was with the fucking Power Stone, which was a little much for Captain Marvel. So without that, I'm not saying Thanos is he's kind of a god tier villain, but yeah, they establish, with like 6 Avengers and a cosmic character, you could take on Thanos with no weapons. and then just from there, my biggest comparison that I didn't want to say because of a spoiler. Have you ever heard my theory that is now validated, Mr. Baker? Back to the Future 2 should have been Back to the Future 3.
No, I don't think so.
Back to the Future 2, you should have had one more fun Back to the Future movie where they go and do different things, and then you should have Back to the Future 2, by the way, my favorite one, where they both zip into the future and then crisscross throughout the timelines of the movies you now love. But we didn't love part 3 yet. We didn't see it. You shouldn't close with that one. That should have been your second one. The Endgame is Back to the Future 2.
Yeah, I had that same thought, actually. I actually did. It actually reminded me of several movies throughout its course, and like everything it did, it was like better than the thing before. It had like that for some reason when Thanos' army shows up, it reminded me of the Masters of the Universe movie.
Oh my god!
Army shows up. It had like the same kind of big vehicles coming in,
right?
Much greater, obviously.
Skeletor ship appearing above like an Ohio mall.
yeah, right. And then, of course, when Scarlet Witch comes in against Thanos, and he's like, "I don't even know who you are." It totally reminded me of Street Fighter. Like, for me, it was Tuesday. Whatever that line is that Raul Julia says. And of course, when all the bad guys get dusted, it was like all the battle droids getting just shutting down at the end. There was a lot of like just stuff that reminded me of other stuff, but in good ways, and it was always better.
And I thought it was fortuitous. You were on VGA last week, and we were talking about War of the Gems, and I was making fun of Denim Vest Hulk, and like, oh, that was the period where Hulk was green and strong and smart. And I didn't even think like, oops, we sort of forecast something that was going to be an Endgame that we had no idea was going to be an Endgame. And the second that happened, I was giddy and like rolling in my chair laughing because I do love that Hulk, and I didn't expect that at all. And not to complain too much, I kind of hate how Hulk has been used. I know he's always been this mopey character who will remove himself from scenarios where you think you might hurt each other, but he doesn't have a solo movie. So I don't know. Like I'm not an Age of Ultron hater, but I hate the idea of like I hated the idea of Hulk leaving. I hate the idea of Banner not being able to conjure his powers in Infinity War. I hated that. And I love the idea of him having full Hulk control. I thought that was so great.
And I think it's the first time that's ever been represented outside of comics too, which is pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, I can't even think of a fucking cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that 90s one, he was like, you know, articulate, but not like the Professor Hulk.
Because, yeah, in terms of the promotional materials, I didn't even realize you never see Hulk.
That's true. I mean, it's not like there isn't enough other characters to keep you distracted from not seeing Hulk.
You know, I do remember, I'm pretty sure, I stopped looking at those articles on like CBR or whatever, like, new Lego set spoils Avengers. Like, I'm looking at that shit. And in hindsight, I'm pretty sure they had a smiling, because the Hulk has sort of looked like Mark Ruffalo. Never this much, though. And just him talking and giving thumbs up and shrugging, like, those will be my favorite frames of the movie, I think, when all is said and done.
Yeah, I remember seeing, like, memes of, like, well, there are pictures of Hulk, like, in marketing, but it doesn't look like that, necessarily. They managed to make it still represent what it is in the movie without it, like, totally looking like Professor Hulk or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was just that he, in some of the materials, he does have the quantum suit on, which makes him look like, well, this has to be a different version of the Hulk we know, because you couldn't normally dress the fucking Hulk.
Yeah, but I remember seeing, like, memes a few weeks ago, like, just showing how through the course of these movies, like, the Hulk has actually looked different. You know, he looks a lot different in The Incredible Hulk than he does in Avengers. And, you know, and his skin is much less green in this one. But it's like, that all makes sense now. You know, that meme that's like, hey, isn't this like some stupid thing that they're not looking at? They were totally looking at it, and it actually makes sense.
Yeah, and like 11 years ago, for someone to write that in a script for Hulk to be Hulk and Banner at the same time, that would be thrown aside. Like, that's too fucking expensive. We're not making an all CGI character for an entire film. Are you crazy? Instead, that's all they do. It would have been a reason not to make the entire movie. And it's just one thing they add in here to make a movie more special. I love that about, I don't know what we call him, Smart Hulk? Is there a shorthand?
Professor Hulk, Nerd Hulk is also, I think, in Ultimate they call him Nerd Hulk. Yeah, Professor Hulk, I think, is kind of the quote-unquote official thing to call him.
And I think the light CG touch I keep forgetting about is when Tony returns to Earth and he's emaciated. And it's just like, I had to like stare at that, like, what the fuck is wrong with, oh my god, they actually bothered to make RDJ look emaciated on screen.
Yeah.
And because I don't know, like, I was watching Civil War with my dad, and it's like, why'd he do that? And like, oh, the last Iron Man movie was all about PTSD, and part of Iron Man's arc is like the wear and tear, even like failing takes on him. Like succeeding and failure has always taken on Tony Stark, because they don't let on in the movies, but this is a 50-year-old man. Unlike everybody else, he's not endowed with any real superpowers, so it takes its toll. It, like, watching Civil War, it's like, yeah, he's not like Cap. He can't regrow limbs, and he's not he's impervious to everything. So like, he's a little more careful and stressed out than the other members of the Avengers. I don't know. But did you have a character that you particularly gravitated towards in Endgame?
That's a good question. I mean, I at the same way that Hulk was kind of funny and unexpected, Thor, of course, was also funny and unexpected. I don't think anyone was anticipating Thor I think with a gut.
I think that's they'll have to like redraw Webster's dictionary's image of subverting expectations or whatever. Because like, that's something no one was thinking about or asking for, but you got anyway.
Yeah, I saw a pretty funny tweet from someone who's like, "Oh wow, I can finally cosplay as Thor now." Because, you know, he's
goodbye Zangief, it's all Thor.
Yes. Oh man, there's gonna be so many fat Thors at Comic-Con this year.
Or what did Matt Allen, who wanted to be on this but could not, I believe he called him Thorbowski.
Okay, yeah.
Thorbowski.
That seemed a little. I thought that was a little too on the nose. Like I saw it too, and I totally anticipated that.
I thought it was just as like, well, I think Jeff Bridges is the only person we couldn't get in this movie, so we'll have to double up with fucking Chris Hemsworth.
There you go.
I thought it was weird because who isn't a big Rocket Raccoon fan? And it's weird. I'm not sure the Russo brothers like know how to use him very well. He's always funny to me, and he didn't have a lot of standout funny stuff. And he's always talking.
He had some fun, like kind of understated lines.
He did, and I was thinking maybe it wasn't the place for him to chime in with that kind of shit, because this is like, no, all your friends are dead. Let's take this a little seriously. I just thought that was weird to like leave him as one of the two Guardians, and I didn't realize, man, how important Nebula was going to be. Jesus, I kept scratching my head like, why Nebula? I mean, I like Nebula being here, but like, this is such a weird decision. Like,
actually, earlier I said something about like, I was as a hardcore comic fan, I was thinking, maybe they're going to do certain things, and there's a huge thing in the actual Infinity Gauntlet story where Nebula takes the gauntlet. And the end of it is basically about getting away from her. So there were definitely moments where I was like, okay, she's going to turn on, bad Nebula, 2014 Nebula, is going to turn on Thanos while she's holding this, I guess you call it Infinity Gauntlet still, that Tony put together. And it didn't happen, which, I thought was, it was cool that they didn't feel the need to be so faithful to the source material in that respect, and but at the same time, it's like keeping fans guessing. I think, like in the same way, like the Walking Dead TV show does, because different characters die.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even. It's like that kind of thing.
I wouldn't have even thought of that if you hadn't put it in my head last week, like that was going to be the case. So I had a little writing on that, and by the time I was like super concerned about it, her real purpose for being left behind was revealed, and I thought that was just a really interesting way to get Thanos into more of the movie.
But at the same time, I think it still would have worked. Like coming into this, my trepidation about that particular thing possibly happening was that though Nebula did like play a bigger role, like in Guardians 2, she's still not like the level of everybody else, but I feel like she kind of earned it. Yeah. If that had happened, I think it still would have worked.
No, I really like her character in that series anyway, because her life sucks the most. It's understandable for her to have a giant chip on her shoulder and be a hard turn. And she's kind of like this newborn android being taught about the ways of good at this point, and I dig that.
Yeah, that football, it wasn't even paper football. It was like aluminum foil football or something.
Yeah, it was like gift wrap football.
That was a great just little character moment there at the beginning. I would like to play again. I
don't. Yeah. You tell me everything you think. I just want to sit back and listen to you for a little bit while I have you. Just because, like, I'm trying to rattle off everything I said before we like go deep into the ending and our some of the Swan songs. But all your thoughts, Chris. Let them go.
Well, some of the just comic fan stuff that the fan servicey type of stuff that I thought was awesome was stuff like Steve wielding Mjolnir, which is out of fear itself. That happened in that story.
That was I think one of Brett's highlights. I think everybody really dug the way Cap was used, especially if you're waiting on pins and needles for him to be murdered by Thanos's bare hands. Like, dude, this was much classier.
Yes, absolutely. Other like just kind of comic booky things I loved. The way they go on the missions, like kind of as sometimes it was like Iron Man and Cap together, but you don't really expect like Thor and Rocket Raccoon to go on a mission, and that was kind of like what that story Original Sin a few years ago did. I don't really remember the details of something about the Watcher getting killed, and
killed, and it becomes Nick Fury or Bucky.
Ultimately, old school Nick Fury becomes the Watcher, and I think he still is, as far as I know. I don't know.
Think so, except that there was the Watcher, and is he the man on the wall, and then Bucky becomes that?
Yeah. Bucky totes that eye around for a while,
and they are so confused on how to work with Bucky here.
Yeah. Also, there's a part where Hulk is like holding up basically everything that had been blown apart by Thanos, and that really reminded me of there's an old Secret Wars cover where he's holding up basically hundreds of feet of ground so that everyone doesn't, get collapsed. That doesn't collapse on everybody. I think that was an homage to that. So just like this, all these different things, and I'm sure there's stuff I didn't even notice. Oh, another cool one was when Carol and Peter meet, Carol Danvers and Peter Parker. There was a very short time, like in the late 2000s, where they actually dated. So there was a little bit of a flirty nature there. Obviously, it wouldn't work in this continuity. There's a big age difference there.
Yeah, but, lots of articles written about that.
It felt a little flirty, and then the A-Force right after that. Basically, it was all the female characters. They're like, yeah, we got your back. That was basically
that was such a great moment. I'm like, they're not going to really hold out and give us every one of them, and then like, oh shit, they're like, it's hard for me to acknowledge Hope/Wasp as part of the regular Marvel universe because she's like never done anything but stand beside Ant-Man. She's never met anybody, but here she is standing next to and what do they call Potts as Iron Man?
Rescue, yeah.
Okay, yeah, Rescue. That was such a dope moment. Yeah, her flying in, and it just there were a couple things like I don't have your Wikipedia-esque knowledge of like specific moments. They're just every time I'd see something like. This is something I think they'd have to fight to put on film 15 years ago that we just accept now. And I said that right when Spider-Man lands on Valkyrie's unicorn. Like,
oh my God, yeah, that whole sequence is like...
It's like, I can just imagine, like, we're not doing that. We're not spending $1 million of CG budget to film something so silly. And like, no, there it is. And it was awesome. Everybody loved it. And it's stuck in my head forever now. I love it.
Yeah. Just having like a Pegasus in this battle was just... It was awesome, Yeah. But that whole portion, the thing that the first couple times I outright cried. The third was I still got kind of emotional. It was just like to your left, starts with that Captain to your left, and then everyone starts coming out, and it's just like building for 30 seconds or whatever. Everybody's coming out, and then we finally get Avengers assembled. Like, oh my God! Like. I
keep coming across like snarky articles that are like Endgame doesn't acknowledge Age of Ultron. I'm like, it sort of does. I mean, that line being said was cut off in Age of Ultron. Cap being able to move Mjolnir is that's established there. Yeah, and like the existence of Wanda, like they're not ignoring Age of Ultron. It's just
the vision that Tony has. He talks about the vision he had. That was an Age of Ultron as well.
That was also that was for some reason that was the only. I didn't have access to the original Avengers, so that was the one I rewatched, and I was like, man, we've all been too harsh on this movie. Like, because for reasons that make it hold up a little better, Joss Whedon is funnier, and I know Brett in particular. Like, enough with the funny. Like, just make with the heroes. I'm like, I don't know. This movie's still funnier than all the other Marvel movies. Even though it's at Ultron's character's expense.
Yeah, I know he's a big Ultron fan, right?
Yes. It is a bizarre take on Ultron.
It is. But would like a comics faithful one work? I don't know.
I don't know. Like a guy in like full-on open-mouth screen position the entire time? Maybe. I know I hate Optimus Prime's lips moving in the Transformers movies. I'd prefer you just sit there and talk through a shield or something.
Actually, one thing that I was hoping that it's like a fan theory I've had ever since Age of Ultron that I was hoping would be addressed here, but not, is I've always suspected that Thanos actually created Ultron, because first of all, at the end of that movie, you see Thanos say something like, "I'll do it myself," and then there's stuff like in the last one, like Tony's like, "So you know who I am?" And he's like, "Yes, I know you, Stark." Like. Yeah,
because like what activates Ultron's AI?
Right. And they go out of their way to say like there's no way this could have happened without some sort of
interference.
Yeah. And it could be like a cut scene because the movie's 3 hours long, but I still have that in my head canon that Ultron was created by Thanos.
It's very weird. You know what I want to ask you about, and this is a kind of a waste of your Marvel expertise, but I know we both have to be incredible time travel movie fans, and they're even all my favorites other than Flight of the Navigator are referenced in the movie when they start talking about
yes
the quantum. And again, that was a great touch for Ant-Man. I didn't know they were going to do that. I didn't know Ant-Man was he's going to be, I don't know, not an audience surrogate, but the idea of like after a 5-year time jump, he's one of us. Like this was just last summer for me. What? Like
yeah, right.
What happened to the world?
There's your Flight of the Navigator right there. It was only 5 hours.
Thank you. But then after that, like I keep wanting to download the bootleg just so I can hear Hulk's explanation about how time travel is supposed to work in this movie.
Okay, so now we're getting to the part where the thing that I was dreading that I loved how they handled, because
I read those spoilers over a year ago. This is time travel in the quantum realm was going to be involved. I wish I'd never read it.
Yeah.
I'm like, surely they'll think of something more something with more ingenuity than that. I hope that's not it.
I was dreading, you know, like Terminator or Back to the Future or whatever, where it's just like they straight up go back in time and they change what happened. But I love the way they establish what Hulk said, which is basically everything that has happened to you is not going to be erased because that did happen. You know, so
your present becomes your future.
Yeah. It's still a little mind-boggling, like time travel is in general, but it is just kind of a new take on it, and it didn't really become about the time travel. It became about, you know, reliving these great moments. It's kind of like a greatest hits album,
right? I mean, in terms of like one-time movie star usage, like I can't believe the people they bothered to bring back. And
it was great seeing Robert Redford there, you know.
Unbelievable.
In that role.
Even like Frank Grillo. Like, I mean, I don't know if you're like me. Winter Soldier, when all is said and done, might be my favorite movie of the...
I think I'm like you, yeah.
All 22. I mean, you don't take my word for it. It's like, I was watching that, I'm like, oh yeah. Kevin Feige's like, these guys are going to make Avengers now. This was just Cap's second movie. And they did such a phenomenal job. And then a phenomenal job with Civil War, and then I got to say, how many Community cameos do we have? We had Yvette Nicole Brown making a great appearance that I can't believe made a film this heavy, because it serves no purpose other than to have yet another Community cast member in the movie. But yeah, like I love Winter Soldier, and if you love Winter Soldier, man, I can't believe they packed a flashback to 2012 Avengers with that many Winter Soldier references.
Yes, that's true. That is true, because the elevator scene, man.
So fun, man.
That was another amazing moment for a comic fan, because, you know, if you follow comics at all, you know, like 3 years ago maybe, there was this huge controversy for the Secret Empire storyline, which infamously has Cap saying "Hail Hydra" in a more serious manner, whereas here it's kind of a punchline, but also an awesome way out of it. You know?
Just to defy your expectations, it's like I was just thinking about my dad, and like Winter Soldier's the only movie you've seen. That might be the only scene you get. Like, you understand the idea that whispering "Hail Hydra," you were just expecting another big elevator fight, and I was really kind of jonesing for it because I love that sequence in Winter Soldier. But that it's all resolved with knowledge they now have, thanks to having lived through all those events.
Yeah. There's part of me though that I notice everyone curses a lot more in this one, and Captain America even says, "You got to be shitting me," which I don't really like that. Like, it's weird. That's like one of my biggest criticisms.
No. I'll take it over Batman doesn't kill any day, because like, man, Batman kills all the time, but like, no, Cap really doesn't fucking curse.
Yeah, he even had that moment in Age of Ultron where he's like, language.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's showing that the world has changed in a little bit in some way.
Yeah,
possibly.
When him saying that, I thought like, oh, that's like him fucking in a Jason movie. Like he's about to get murdered. Right.
Yeah. It I don't know. I could have done without that, but it's doesn't make me like the movie any less, for sure.
Yeah, I'm still again like using all that time travel to show us how literally how far we've been. how this was all in the making well before Infinity War. Which, what's some of the questions posed by the time travel? Did Infinity War even happen? I still can't wrap my brain around Marvel's version of the time travel. I have to think it's mainly about poetic license and being able to give you the moments that they wanted to give us. Because, you know, if you're thinking like, I don't know, Terminator, Back to the Future logic, like, shouldn't some of these people disappear? But like, what an interesting way to bring Gamora and Mjolnir back. I'm very glad they figured out ways to do that, because Gamora's death in particular, I'm like, you can't undo that. And that's one of the deaths you can't undo. Vision, you can rebuild a Vision, but you can't undo Gamora's death. I was always bummed to see the hammer gone, and they found interesting ways to bring those back. But like, according to their time travel logic, can that happen?
I think actually the hammer, you saw like Cap at the very end go back with it. I think he was giving it back to that time's Thor.
Oh, no shit. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, because it goes with him, and you know what his ultimate motive is, to stay, which you know, I do think that stayed there. You know, he obviously managed to get all the stones back exactly where they came from, because he's Captain America. No way.
Somehow found a spaceship to get to the Soul Gem.
Somehow he inserted the ether back into Natalie Portman. I don't know.
I have to imagine that what if, weren't you baffled? Well, I never talked to you about this, but weren't you baffled in Infinity War that like, why is Red Skull here?
Yeah.
And what if the vague explanation has something to do with getting Captain America there in a deleted scene that they just had to cut for time?
Yeah, I mean, there could be. I mean, maybe in a future movie they'll bring back Black Widow back by having Cap confront Red Skull there.
And everybody makes fun of me, but I'm still dying to see what the fuck happened in Nova Corps. How did they let that gem go?
That could be a Captain Marvel movie. You know, there's all sorts of room for prequels, I think, too, just in the way things have gone.
Yeah, because I guess all in all, the movie didn't really undo anything that had been done before. Almost everybody other than Gamora are locked into the proper timeline.
Yes.
Yes.
And, you know, we don't know what happened to her with 2014 Gamora, because I wasn't actually sure when Peter Quill is searching for Gamora if he was searching for that Gamora or if he was like hoping that there was some way that his old Gamora was out there now that, you know, the Soul Stone is.
Well, I mean, I think that opportunity does present itself, because, like, I think one of the more bizarre things did the Russo brothers plant the news of a Black Widow movie just for us to find her death just so unexpected?
That is interesting, because that was in my mind for sure when that happened. I was like, yeah, when they were fighting over who should die, I thought for sure it was a new Hawkeye.
And again, you've been reading comics for longer than I have. Like, just the fact that Cap brought those stones back, meaning 2018 Gamora and 2019 Natasha might still be among us.
You never know. You can do anything.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if we're still making these movies 10 years from now. Like, that is how you bring someone back.
But yeah, you know, actually, just to go back to kind of what Captain America did, like, I thought it was the most like beautiful way to get Chris Evans out of there without killing him.
Right. I want to tip my hat to them. And I was talking to Brett about that earlier, just because like that was one of those moments where, again, your definitive knowledge, my comic knowledge is like hazy, but like, no, this happened to Cap. He was killed. Winter Soldier took over, and then he came back, but the serum aged him.
Yeah, I think that was when he was in like another dimension. I didn't read that stuff. I just kind of have a vague idea of what was happening.
Well,
like another dimension.
He does. He passes the torch to Falcon, but I think at this time it had been passed to Bucky. Which, in talking to Brett about, like, they built Bucky up a lot in this movie series. I did not think Falcon was going to get the shield. But I do see. I mean, that's still ongoing in the comics, right?
I'm not really caught up. I think
me neither.
I can't remember if Sam Wilson still has the Captain America, is sharing the Captain.
I thought
America
he did
moniker.
last I looked.
Yeah, I don't know. It is it goes back and forth. It's one of the things it makes.
But that's what got me excited.
Getting back into comics a little hard sometimes.
Well, I think the hardest part for me to like really reconcile with, I get Robert Downey Jr. wanting to go somewhere, and like even as a huge fan of him personally and a huge fan of Iron Man, like I'm willing to pass that torch. I really like Chris Evans as Captain America, and it breaks my heart to see him want to leave. And for them to give him that send off, they were able to come back from it in the comics.
Yes, that's true.
There is a way back for Chris Evans. Maybe he goes out there and makes his fucking moody Merchant Ivory movies and decides, Captain America's more fun.
Yeah. One of my dream scenarios now that X-Men are in the picture. Mm-hmm. There's a very famous cover from the early 90s, I think, of Wolverine, Captain America, and Black Widow, like in the 1940s. Oh. I feel like you could still do something like that. If for some reason Chris Evans did want to come back for some kind of one-off or whatever, there's a whole war where he did stuff. And to have like Wolverine there with him, I don't know how they'd get Black Widow in the mix with her canonically.
Well, I didn't think about it till right now, but like just the idea that Gamora's alive and Cap brought the Infinity Stones back means I don't know. Did Hulk say that? No, that's not the case, but that Natasha's still out there somewhere. And
I had the impression that everyone thinks that there's no way to bring her back.
Didn't they say there was going to be a Black Widow movie? Was that just a red herring for this moment?
I think there is going to be a Black Widow movie. I heard there was more casting announced, actually, or heavily rumored. Like the guy in Stranger Things, I think, is supposed to be in it. Yeah,
and there still could be in a different part of the timeline. Like Black Widow has, I think, one of the things people forget about Age of Ultron is like it tries to flesh out whatever backstory she might have more than any other movie.
Yeah. Did we ever see, like, at the end of Winter Soldier, they all meet at the grave of Nick Fury, mm-hmm. and she like goes off on her own mission there. It's
right.
Like, maybe that could be it.
Right.
And of course, she was a Russian spy for.
I don't know, because I caught that in Civil War. I totally forgot about it. That like after Hydra intercepts SHIELD, Natasha spends the rest of her time WikiLeaking all of SHIELD's data all over the internet.
Right.
I totally forgot about that. That she does all the. I don't know. She's this weird. I think she's a much more important linchpin to the Marvel Cinematic Universe than people give her character credit for. Because I think Winter Soldier partially worked because she was there, like rooting everyone back to the Avengers.
Yeah, totally.
And dude, I don't know. I have way too many thoughts in this movie. You tell me where to go. At some point, I want to talk about the time travel theory, because like I didn't until I talked about it with someone like, wait, how did 2014 non-time jump Thanos end up traveling through time to Earth? And if he could do that, why did it take him 11 years to get the Infinity Stones?
Well, he did it because his evil Nebula planted herself among the group.
Oh, that's right. He had the device.
Yeah, while they're actually using the Gauntlet to bring everybody back, and there's all that havoc going on, she activates the machine, and somehow the whole ship and army fits through. So yeah, that's explained. Actually, one thing I'm still not completely clear on after seeing it 3 times is what exactly happens when Tony grabs the Gauntlet from Thanos and does like a switcheroo. Does Doctor Strange contribute in some way? Because the thing that happens right before that is Tony looks at Strange, and Strange like lifts his index finger up. Is that something I'm forgetting?
No, it's remember when they were stuck on Thanos' planet at first, Strange goes into a trance, and he's like, "There's one reality where we succeed," okay. And Tony's about to do his thing, and he just says, "One."
Yeah, so I still don't really understand how he managed to get the Gauntlet off of Thanos.
He didn't get the Gauntlet off Thanos. He got the gems off
Stone. Okay.
Which only right beforehand is it established that you can just rip those fuckers. They're in there with magnets. Kind of the way your Apple Watch charges, I guess. Like some wireless charging device. I mean, I don't want to question that too much, because like
yeah, it's a great moment.
They I guess if you want to give them credit, they never. I feel like one of the comics did like showed like the gauntlet affixing itself to the gems, whereas this it just shows the gems kind of widen and not get locked in. So maybe they are removable. I don't know. It's not something. It's not that big a deal. It's just. It's not. It's not that big a deal, but it is a great. It just. I think you and I, as huge Marvel fans, and like we're comfortable with the universe we got, and I still just never want to forget that, like, because of Marvel's contracts and licensing, we ended up in a world where Iron Man headed the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, and
he deserved that moment.
He absolutely deserved that moment, and you know, it was a great hero's death. You know, he did something. He totally sacrificed himself, and I think he knew what was going to happen to him when he did that.
I know I did. I yelled "fuck" in a quiet theater, and
Oh, to harken back to something I said earlier, by the way, my wife typed in the letter I, and like the first thing that came up in Google was Iron Man dies.
Wow. What a bunch of assholes. What a bunch of assholes. Oh, I hate it.
I know.
I hate it, even though, like, I think we all knew that was. I thought that was what was going to happen. I was more confused on like how they were going to send Cap out, because Chris Evans had gone through the trouble of like thanking the universe a year ago and basically saying goodbye, which I knew he was gone. I just wanted to see the way they do him in, and I assumed you can't really have two great hero deaths in this.
That was something going in that I was a little iffy about too. It's like, are they really gonna play with our emotions that much?
But they did. Like if you're like, I think we were both talking last week about Cap's Infinity Gauntlet moment being one of the best, and it was like the way they skirted up to it, but then unleashed all of the Undusted was a great subversion of expectations. If you were waiting for something like that, like just not giving up. Oh fuck! Everyone's here to help. Fantastic.
Yeah, we totally got that moment too with the Thanos busting the shield and everything.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
Yeah. And like again, it's not important to have even read that. It's just like to give every kind of viewer all these separate moments to attach to is so much fucking fun. I don't know. I cannot wait to see this again. I cannot wait to nitpick it apart, because the time travel makes it all fucking weird. It makes it all weird.
Time travel makes everything always weird. It's, I feel like it's actually one of the more simpler treatments of time travel. Like it feels like a kind of forget everything you know kind of approach to time travel.
Yes.
Don't try to be too clever with it, and just like treat your past like your own. And that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, for that movie. But you know how comics work. I think when they want to bring anybody back, they're going to harken back to this, and they'll eventually start discussing how many Rick and Morty timelines are occurring simultaneously in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm curious, like, what happens, like, with Captain America going back in time and staying there, or like, did he just like sit back and watch himself get unfrozen, and this other Captain America was just walking around the whole time?
To me, it's not entirely clear of when he went back to, and is there a frozen version of Captain America still?
Yeah, at first I thought he was gonna go back to. I thought he'd be like having to stay back in 1970, which would have made Peggy like 60 at that time.
Right.
So, but no, I think he just did what they did when they were in 2012 and went back to 1970, because he just brought enough PIM particles with him that he could go wherever he needed to.
Yeah, and again, one of my huge tip of the hat to them, if you've been following the movies, they have. I was watching Civil War with my dad, and when Robert Downey Jr. comes on screen, remember it's like less than zero Robert Downey Jr. next to John Slatery, like de-age.
Yeah.
In ways we've seen them do to Michael Douglas and Kurt Russell. And my dad's like, wait, how old is Robert Downey Jr. in this movie? I'm like, yeah, that's how good this tech has gotten since, I'll just say, hate throwing it on the bus constantly, Tron Legacy, which looks fucking terrible at this point. But that's how good Marvel has gotten at de-aging these celebrities. And to do the opposite with Captain America on just on an effects level, like that was very much Chris Evans, like affecting an old voice. I don't know how much of it was CG. I want to say it was all CG. Like they.
Yeah, I have no idea.
If we can make someone look extremely young, we can make them look extremely old too. And I absolutely love that because I didn't want to see them de-age somebody. I wanted to see that. I didn't realize it at the time, but I wanted to see them. Oh, I did want to see them do the reverse effects wise.
Yeah, you know, I think they even de-aged Stan Lee for his cameo.
I think so too.
It looked like he did circa 1970. And I feel like too that people didn't get it because there was like no reaction. All 3 times I saw it, like there wasn't really any kind of that's Stan, you know.
I think something. I think there was some problem with that because, like, to my knowledge, that is his last film.
It is that they have stated that anyway. Yeah,
cameo, and like meaning they probably had 1 or 2 shots at it, and it's on screen for blink and you'll miss it. Like I think you recognized the Nuff said bumper sticker and you know what was up, and I think the rest of the audience might not have. And his face is on screen for so little time.
It's enough time to say like "damn dirty hippies" or whatever he says.
No, most of that occurs when they cut to the base. Like I'm very curious to hear more about that because I mean I'm sure you read about the Captain Marvel. It was more interesting than you thought it was. They had to find his Mallrats dialogue after his death because they didn't have enough dialogue for Stan Lee in that sequence.
Right, that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, so like
yeah. Oh, good.
No, I think they never really. I think because if I'm not mistaken, in certain cases they filmed Stan Lee cameos that weren't even used. They had to because the plot changed around so much. So I have a feeling. I don't know. That was just so quick. I have a feeling something not went wrong, but like something else. There's something interesting we don't know yet to that cameo that I can't wait to hear about.
Actually, you're saying talking about the old footage reminds me of Natalie Portman in this. I think it is entirely recycled footage, but I did hear that she recorded like 2 lines.
She did
2 lines here, and that was her role in this movie.
Yeah, and Tilda Swinton's appearance was a surprise because I actually forgot what happened to her. Like I totally forgot what happened to her in Doctor Strange. That's the only Marvel movie I've seen only once. And I was sort of shocked to see her again, especially given that it was like one of the more controversial bits of casting.
Yeah, but I thought it was really cool. Like it totally showed her playing a role in the Battle of New York, which of course she would have been doing. And yeah, it even adds more to Doctor Strange because I don't think we got in Doctor Strange that she knew all along that Strange would be the best of them. Yeah. Like that, I think, is new information. 5 years too early. Yeah, exactly. And the reason she hands over the stone is because Stephen Strange is going to be the best of us, and he must have done it for a reason. Right. He because other than everyone blaming Star-Lord for the events of the dusting, Doctor Strange is not without his blame too because he gave over the stone too quick. They even bring that up early in the film. Why would he fucking do that? And I immediately clicked with me. Like, he did what? He gave the stone over? And she just hands Hulk the stone. Like, he must have found the one way. It has to be like this. Take it. I thought that's so neat. And again, I think maybe you've heard me talk about this more and more often. I've always loved the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but for a really long time, it had to play with like regular movie rules and couldn't get super comic booky. Like, this was. And I think post Deadpool, everybody had to kind of shake it up a little bit because Deadpool was too authentic to its source material, whether you like it or not. This is super authentic to what comics are. In a way well, remember back in Thor, like they went out of their way to tell you this isn't actually magic. This is just really advanced science. Yeah. So like even at that time, they were probably, are we really gonna do this Doctor Strange magic stuff eventually? Yeah, I didn't even think they'd succeed with space. So like I was after they conquered Doctor Strange, like, well, this universe can do anything. I think the audience is ready to accept traditional 60 years in the making comic book logic to everything. I think they're not only willing to accept it, they love it. They love talking about it. I do. Yeah, I mean, they love talking about it for years on end, but it's still like, I don't know, there's no movie I've ever seen as dense and as discussable than Endgame, for real. And way more so than Infinity War. Yeah, nothing historically has done this, like nothing has had 21 movies ahead of it so that it could tell its story. Yeah, this should have been like
something like if they spent all the money and writers in the universe on the season finale of Lost. That's what this should have looked like. But like to resolve this many, there were legitimate storylines and arcs for characters that came to a close even if they didn't die. And I don't know, I was super taken aback by that. Like, what a great job they've ended up doing. And that's the only reason I sort of hate the idea of spoiling it, because this is something I hope everyone gets to experience firsthand. And I don't know, I've already had you for an hour, man. Any other takeaways you want to throw out there?
I don't know. I think I've kind of said everything. My biggest thing right now, I think, is like, how do they move things forward?
I think that's
in a compelling way that will possibly top this. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but they had a lot of work to do there.
I think that's an excellent question for you, because I didn't even think about A-Force until you brought it up.
Yeah.
Because I think essentially what we have, and not really, because like if a Marvel character is like above like C popularity, they've been an Avenger at some point. But like I would imagine we won't see the banner of Avengers for a while. It doesn't mean we won't group these people into other I don't know, maybe other familiar franchises. I don't see how we move forward with Thor in the Guardians. I imagine that's going to be undone very fast.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible.
Well, there actually is a comic as Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not that team at all, but I think Guardians 3 could very heavily involve Thor, because they probably they want to give him a break from having his own movie, and just having these kind of fun crossovers is a good way to keep things going. Yeah,
and Hemsworth is not one of those people I've heard publicly thrown around like his contract's done and he wants out. No, I think I remember.
I have heard him say a few times that he's not a big fan of all the working out he has to do, and maybe that actually contributed to the Thor we got.
Well, I think if you a long time ago, if you remember reading it, like Robert Downey Jr. was the one with a badass payday. And Chris Hemsworth, in particular, being the most unknown of the Avengers, I think he was given like $200,000 a movie, like a contract like that shitty, until Robert Downey Jr. came like, dude, no, you know what? You know how much is going to make pay the man? He's the one who has to stay in like phenomenal shape. So I think that was the only time I heard him like kind of wincing over his role as Thor, because I think he had to do the most and was paid the least, and I think that changed. And he probably in a different Marvel universe, like even the Marvel universe now, one of my favorite characters, like Mr. Fantastic, is just a guy like the rest of the Marvel universe go visit when they need a question answered, which means
kind of, yeah,
you could have Thor in like every other movie for 3 or 4 minutes. I'm sure Hemsworth would be fine with that. And yeah, it's fun to know that he's still out there. But I was going to see if you could think of any other groupings that you see moving forward that like. A-Force, that you mention it now, is like, because everyone there is relatively new, and in terms of we're just now getting our solo lady superhero movies. Why not a solo lady team up? And
that could happen.
Right?
I mean, yeah, they know each other. Yeah. We know that.
And I was always like, man, why is Gwyneth Paltrow here? This spoiled piece of Hollywood royalty. She's so much older than everybody else, but something about her leading the A-Force really appeals to me right now, especially the way she
entered. Even like if it's like a Nick Fury kind of thing.
Yeah.
I could totally see that. Yeah, actually, you mentioned Fantastic Four a couple minutes ago, and it reminded me of something. Did you get a good look at the ice cream that Hulk is eating, the Ben & Jerry's?
No.
I'm assuming it is the
Hulka Burn and Fudge
that is referred to in the previous movie, but it's kind of blurry and it's not on screen very long. But it looks like in the upper right that there's a Human Torch right there.
Ooh.
That's, next time you see it and you see him eating that, it's in the lower left part of the screen.
I think we've always said that like it's not that I thought the Marvel universe was getting dull, but to reinvigorate it, and this is totally by accident, would be to bring in FF and the X-Men from here on out.
Yeah, and I think it could be interesting too if maybe the new Snap brings everybody back in some way created Fantastic Four and Mutants.
Oh goodness! And that's what I was thinking about, because wow, you mentioning that brings it all together, because you're right. The first couple movies are very heavily reliant on making sure we explain everything with science. we don't want to lean too much on the magic power of these gems until like 2012. That's like 4 or 5 years before they leaned heavily on magic they couldn't explain.
Right.
And yeah, at some point I could totally see a Tony Stark character talking about there's this new mutation permeating the universe. And yeah, let's discover what's going on here. Oh, it turns out someone's already been ahead of it, and his name is Xavier. I've
been thinking about that a lot, and the only things I don't like about the possibility of the snap creating mutants is one, we're gonna have to get rid of the whole Magneto in World War II, which is a long time ago anyway, and really doesn't make any sense. But it's such a great part of this character.
You bought Captain America's age, even though I think it would make him like 110.
Yeah. Do you make it like someone who fought? It was part of something in the 2000s after 9/11 or something, and then there's some tragic story around that. That could be a Magneto. There's things you can do, and then of course Logan's big thing is he's 150 years old or whatever. And does he just get his powers? No. There would have to be something to make Wolverine have been around for as long as he has been.
Right, and the idea that even bringing in Adam Warlock was teased in Guardians, wasn't he?
Yes.
So but you know as well as I do that Fantastic Four is a pretty legit gateway into the Marvel Cosmic. So if they were holding off something for Phase 4, that's pretty significant. Because
and the villains, I think, especially Galactus and Doctor Doom,
right,
I think are probably maybe the biggest tier villains that could be a Thanos level.
Yeah, especially especially yes. Because I can't think of a ton of X-Men villains that would give the Avengers a run for their money. I don't know.
Maybe Magneto, but you want to keep him as an X-Men guy.
Yeah, Doom is repeatedly
maybe have him be a good guy at times too.
Doom and Galactus are obviously and have been repeatedly used as Marvel-wide villains. Everybody tangles with them eventually. That prospect is super fucking exciting. God damn.
But the thing that complicates it for me a bit is Doom's motives are kind of what Thanos' motives in the MCU were. To rule. I think he's a little more power hungry than Thanos, but he also has an aspect of him of making, killing people for the greater good. There was a story I liked a few years ago called Doom World, where that was kind of the driving force behind the story was he wanted to kill a bunch of people, but he wanted to do it to save the world.
Would you have much of a problem if Doom during a few years ago was but a young prince in yet another fictional area of Sokovia?
I would not have a problem with that. That sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it fits in.
Maybe Latveria is a part of Sokovia or something like that. Yeah,
it fits in pretty decently. And why bother creating this one fictional town when everything else is, well, except for the cosmic stuff, is rooted in reality? I don't know. I'm just excited. I guess I'm legit excited to where they go from here. And my only other reservation is Spider-Man. I believe whatever handshake deal they worked out with Sony is over at the end of the next picture, which they said is the legit close to Phase 4, and I kind of roll my eyes at that. That's not the close to.
Yeah,
it's like Ant-Man being the close to Phase 2.
My biggest question, actually, just super geeky question coming out of that, is you see Peter hug Ned after when everything's all set.
The time,
and we're 5 years later, right? And it was 50% of the population that anyway, it seems like half his class would be 5 years older.
Yes,
college aged. But Far From Home, we're seeing Flash Thompson's there, Betty Brant's there. It seems like very coincidental.
They could have all been victim to the time jump. I thought I heard the Russos say maybe that Ned was also dusted because they were answering questions who was and wasn't dusted. The only one I remember them confirming wasn't dusted appeared in Endgame. What's Korg? Taika Waititi's character. They're like, no, Korg didn't get dusted. I'm like, that's a lovely thing to say. I wonder if that'll pay off in the next movie. And it did for like 5 seconds.
With Fortnite, yeah.
Korg with Fortnite. It's much better than the Fantastic Four movie where Doctor Doom plays Assassin's Creed with his face.
Yeah, a friend of mine actually pointed out, so is Fortnite really going to be popular in 5 years? And, if you lost half the population of game developers, probably.
It is infinite possibilities, and it's this free game floating around in the ecosystem. Yeah, but I mean, they don't go into it very much. But I thought that was a more interesting thought I had about the 5-year time jump is that the world moved on, and like they weren't Planet of the Apesing for like a precious resource or anything like that. We have electricity. We built monuments to the dead. The world moved on, and that's it made it more depressing to think about.
Oh, by the way, a fun little, very insider Easter egg. I used to work at Marvel, and there are people who work for Marvel on the wall in San Francisco of all the fallen, dusted people.
I knew it.
I recognized a few names there.
I knew,
and that was a very specific, cool Easter egg. Probably if you check that against the credits, there's going to be a lot of.
I remember kind of wincing. I'm like, there's going to be so much hidden names in this wall. I don't want to boot like this and look for them.
Well, you wouldn't recognize most of them.
Okay, good. But I thought they could even confirm characters who, as of yet, haven't been in the Marvel universe. Like,
maybe.
Like looking at that wall.
Like that is interesting.
You go by it and see like Hank McCoy or some shit like that, and yeah, I don't. If you had to work in the Fox acquisition at the last minute, I think text on a wall would be the way to do it.
I hadn't thought about like that being that kind of Easter egg.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be. I was waiting for someone else to break it down, but I haven't thought about it since I saw it. You brought it up.
Yeah, well, as far as I know, it's just actual Marvel employees or people who worked on the movie, which is a fun way to they've earned it. They can get their names in there outside the credits.
And I read that the post-credit sequence. Now that we're closing down, I remember reading that there wasn't going to be a traditional post-credit sequence. Did that bother you?
Didn't bother me at all. I think it was incredibly appropriate to not be looking forward to what's next in this very, mostly final, Marvel movie. It's actually always kind of bothered me. Like a lot of times in past Marvel movies, people don't ask me. I would. A few of them I got to see early because when I worked at Marvel, especially, people wouldn't ask me like, "Hey, was the movie great?" They'd ask me like,
"No."
So what is the teasing at the end?
Yeah, and I thought like after. What was it? Was it like after which movie was it? I don't think that the post-credit sequence have been very significant in like 3 years. They don't. Winter Soldier being the one like, oh, they introduced 2 new characters who you've never met. That's crazy.
Well, the mid-credits ones are significant. Like, actually, it doesn't even make sense for Captain Marvel to be in this movie unless you watch the mid-credits of Captain Marvel.
That is it, and that was the only thing. And we're getting in for a close here, Baker. That's why I'm talking about. And I thought, like, is this literally... I wish I had to pee so bad. Any article that tells you what good time there is to pee in the movie is lying to you because there is no fucking good time to pee. Just do it beforehand. But I had to pee so bad, and I was like, fuck, man, like, is this literally them trying to hammer home that Iron Man is gone? I don't consider that to be a tease of something to come.
The audio?
Yeah, the audio.
Yeah, right. I think it's just a salute to where they started, basically.
In a weird,
metaphorically speaking, yeah, that they did just go clank, 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 and put these down.
In a weird way, like I'm not. You could do an alternate timeline where if they hadn't cast somebody as underrated and hyper talented as Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, we talked about it on 30-2010. Just like the movie ends with like, I have no secret identity. Therefore, there's no way this will be like any superhero movie you've seen before. Because every movie had a character had a secret identity. That, like, from 2008, they established it. Boom, I am Iron Man. Cut. The rest of the universe is not going to be the same. And then they throw to Nick Fury, and I think the only a weird alternate timeline where someone other than Robert Downey Jr. is charismatic to hold up Marvel's first single superhero film. It could have gone a lot differently, but that guy rules, man. I love that dude.
Yeah,
and it breaks my heart.
And he redefined that character. And he made him a movie character as opposed to a comic book character at the end of the day, I think.
And we talk about it on Laser Time because I have a clip of an interview of someone cornering him with questions about his dark past and drug abuse. And like, I think we're all past that. And if Robert Downey Jr. doesn't bring a smile to your face by showing up to like, I don't know, like kid fundraisers dressed as Tony Stark and throwing out, he's behaving like Tony Stark in real life for diseased children that love Iron Man. He couldn't be a better person now.
Yeah.
And I loved him as a representative, like outside of the films of the Marvel Universe. So I think that's something I don't think we know yet how much we'll miss. And I hope he's brought back in some way. I hope he's the new Jarvis.
They could do that. They did that in the comics because he did die for a while.
Right.
And when Riri the young girl, took over the mantle of Ironheart, he would talk to her as
it's totally
Star Wars
possible
protection kind of thing. Yeah.
It is completely possible, but yeah, I don't know. My brain is fucking swimming, and I hope people got a chance to see it. Thank you for talking to me about it, bud.
Yeah, I'm grateful to have this time. Actually, it was great.
Yeah, just because I don't know, because I do worry sometimes about someone like you, because with your memory of this stuff, you're giving yourself more expectations than I am walking into one of these films.
Yeah, at the same time, I think I'm actually easier on adaptations than a lot of people are, because there's still this part of me that just thinks it's neat that this stuff is happening.
Right.
Like, even if the movie isn't that great or whatever, you know, I think it's cool that there's a Hellboy movie that's everyone hates it, or I haven't seen it, but you know, the fact that exists.
Yeah, a rated R Hellboy movie. We live in a world.
As someone who grew up in the 80s and 90s, and you know, all we had was Superman, and Batman, basically. Like, you know, which were I treasure those movies, but they were very far apart comparatively,
right.
And you know, it certainly didn't look like there would be anything as representative of the comic books I was reading at the time. And if you just kind of sit back and look at it like that, like, all these movies are great in one way or another.
We are so very, very lucky. I always think that. Just every time I talk about Adam West Batman, just because I didn't recognize that as campy or silly. Same. It was just like, this is the one thing I have representing comics every day on television. Of course I'm going to watch it.
Right there with you, yeah. I would read articles about how that was campy back when the '89 movie came out.
Wasn't that all right? So you're with me. That was like shocking. Like, people didn't like the Adam West Batman. What? I watch this every day.
Or people didn't think it was like serious, and
and it wasn't.
Yeah.
But just that we've gotten here. That's a good attitude to take, I guess. And because you probably spent a lot of time trying to adapt these characters in real ways into modern entertainment. You probably know that it's not exactly easy, and you probably come from an era that the one I speak of like people above you, like, well, is the audience willing to accept this? Like, I have to imagine that's a question people who work on non-comic Marvel entertainment ask themselves all the time. I'm sure video games.
I mean, I had that question of myself. You know, before I worked at Marvel, I worked at Lucas, and I remember seeing test footage that ILM did for Iron Man, and I was like, in my head, I was like, they're making an Iron Man movie? Yeah, it's cool. Sure, that's great. But they're making an Iron Man movie, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this gonna work? Oh, next, you'll be telling me they're gonna make a Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah.
It was so exciting, and I don't know. I think I'll walk in. I'll walk in a little more casual to every Marvel movie after this, because I don't know how you recreate something like this. But you
got to spend another decade building to it.
Maybe, but then like again, watching Civil War again, like Civil War was a really interesting approach to post Avengers. Like, almost when I was watching it with my dad, I'm just like, is this them saying like, we can't go back to like a solo self-contained superhero universe anymore? This all has to be part of kind of a Marvel storyline, and Civil War is a really good sequel to it's a really good Avengers movie. That is really only resolved in this movie, by the way. It's resolved here. Like, like, what is it? 4 years later, where Captain America and Iron Man finally talk again.
There's still hostility between them in this movie.
Right, right. It's so fucking crazy to build something out.
Yeah, Tony's like, you know, if we had put an Iron Man in all these cities, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, maybe this.
I wanted much what that was.
I wanted to shield the world, and then is he a baby? Did he come back a baby? I don't know. I loved his reintroduction to the. I want to keep talking about this, but I know I can't keep you. But any other parting thoughts for Endgame?
No, just I've seen it 3 times, and I'll probably see it more.
Oh, and here's the last bit of speculation I have. I think, if you want to be super cynical about it, I think they'll re-release this in theaters with a proper stinger at the end.
Okay.
I can see that. I mean, did you see the records this thing has broken?
Oh yeah. I posted a tweet earlier today. It's made just domestically $350 million in one weekend.
Yep.
And I distinctly remember in '89 when Batman was huge, and it broke a record. In 10 days, it made 100 million.
Yep.
Which today is like 205 million. It's a little calculator thing, but still, it took 10 days to reach the equivalent of $205 million today.
I remember at the end of the summer of '97, Entertainment Tonight reluctantly tipped its hat to Batman and Robin for being the highest-grossing movie of that summer with like $140 million.
Wow.
The Batman movie, everybody walked out of disappointed. Highest grossing, 104, and this I think globally reached 1.3 billion in less than a weekend.
That's crazy,
unbelievable. Which is like the only, because this movie, by the way, looks so expensive. And that, again, I promised I would stop talking. There was a really interesting article in Variety that I thought was fascinating, given how much CG and like, man, all these CG sequences. This and one more thing, and then we'll stop. I swear. That you are seeing, it's one of the first times someone speculated you're seeing stuntmen more than you're seeing any of the actors. That they're getting, the stuntmen get more screen time, and it was this interesting story about the Marvel stuntmen, about how Chris Hemsworth, his stuntman travels with him and eats the same diet as he does. He has a specific guy that he chooses to be him, and they all these people who end up donning the suits that you see on screen are almost never these actors, which also they speculated like. I'm sure that the promotional circuit tires them, but the movie is not that hard on some of these actors. They're in front of green screens, they have a ton of stunt doubles, and I think the most CG sequence of the entire film, not to take away from it, but because it's really great, is the Iron Man funeral.
There's CG. Wait, what's the CG in the?
I don't think any of those people are in the same spot.
Oh, I see. Yeah, they're all very oddly placed.
Yes.
Yeah, that is true. I did think it was kind of weird how strangely placed they were between each other. Yeah,
and I remember looking at this and like, ooh, this is going to be that panning shot. But Doctor Strange already looks like he's in a different country. He does not look. He's not even like the same resolution right now as he does. He's too out of focus for where he's standing. But yeah, I think that, I'm not giving them shit. Like it was still a great sequence. The only thing that baffled me, I'm like, who the fuck is this kid standing alone?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, did that confuse you?
Totally. I couldn't put it together until I got home and Googled it. Did you get it immediately?
Yeah. I did not get it immediately. I did think of that kid throughout the course of the movie at one point, but I did not realize that it was the kid from Iron Man 3 that was standing there by himself. Yeah, it's cool to have him in there, but it was very confusing.
And to close it off, I'm curious about how to feel, because we were just talking about the original Iron Man, which is not only the introduction of Tony, but it is the introduction of Nick Fury. And Nick Fury is kind of the last, what's the word? Not new character, but the last first appearance we have in the film.
Okay.
Yeah, that's his first appearance in Endgame. And he has no dialogue, and I don't know. I just thought that was kind of moving, and
I noticed too. I think he just doesn't want people to notice him there, because there is the moment in the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer where he meets Nick Fury like he's never actually talked to him before, and they're both there.
Huh? Man, that's so.
I think he's just being discreet, and he's like, I should probably go to this.
Well, that gets me crazy excited. Because in that Ultimate Universe, Nick Fury finally coming up. Nick Fury does have the Iron Man role in the Ultimate Universe with Spider-Man. Like, is it Miles or Peter Parker? Like, nah, dude, you need to go to school. I'm looking out for you. Trust me, people are watching you. We know everything you've done.
Yeah, one of the early issues, he tells Peter, he says you're gonna die when you're 21, and I'm the only one who can help you, or something. Something like that.
Yeah, and then I think it agrees to train him at some point.
Yeah,
in a pre-MCU world, but fuck, I'll leave that's it. That's all I got.
I do love this film.
Yeah, I am really holding it to Hollywood. You got to make something better than this, and I don't know how it happens. And I'm not sure how much it'll stand alone as a movie, but like as a cinematic experience and this reward for paying attention and caring for 11 years, I don't know anybody ever tops this. There isn't currently an on-screen universe this dense.
Yeah, and I wonder how many, like the next time somebody copies the formula in a successful way, if that'll ever happen.
Right. Even the current, I was already getting misty in the trailer section of this movie because like I really like the way Detective Pikachu looks. God damn. And I'm not even like this huge Pokemon fan. Just like this is a much better way to approach a movie like this. And then they go into Star Wars and like I keep forgetting they all of a sudden decided to start promoting it as the last Star Wars, the end of a series, and like you're not going to be able to hold a candle to this at all. How are you going to do that?
It will be tough. I'm certainly rooting for it.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, it will be tough. And you know, and as we're recording this, the Battle of Winterfell awaits in a few hours.
Oh boy. Okay. I gotta get some.
What a weekend, huh?
I gotta get some pizza and Kleenex. And I think that's there were all these jokes that happened beforehand, and like I think, given the nature of Infinity War and the last episode of Game of Thrones, I thought they were all going towards the same things. And I can't tell any of my friends who haven't seen it yet, but I wish I could. Like, do not go into this movie expecting wall-to-wall Game of Thrones tragedy. I know what the previous episode did to us. This is not that. It is actually triumphant. And the few people we do say goodbye to are done in, other than Natasha, are done in incredibly worthwhile ways. Not that her sacrifice wasn't meaningful. I just like everybody else gets kind of a better moment and a more definitive one. As the more we talk, the more I think Natasha's still with us.
We'll see. I mean, it's comic book logic, so anything can happen.
Right. It just
has to be done in a good way that isn't just, you know.
I have faith. Every time I doubt the MCU, they pull off a Doctor Strange or Guardians, and like, yeah, there's nothing you can't do if you're given enough time and resources.
Thanks again, Chris Antista, for having me on your show. It was always a blast. I love being on the Laser Time shows. I love listening to the Laser Time shows. LaserTimePodcast.com. You should be patrons. I'm a patron, and that's how you get content like what you just heard. Also, maybe consider following Spider-Ham's advice. I'll see you next time.